Hi students, welcome to lesson number 14, norms, values, customs, status and roles. Let us introduce the lesson. The structure of society refers to the way society is organized. Society is organized into different parts, the norms, status and roles. Norms are the basis or foundations of social structure. Let us look into the objectives. 1. To understand the meaning and nature of norms, values, customs, status and roles. To examine the types and importance of above elements. Norms. The sociologists study norms since they constitute the basis, the very foundation of the social structure. Norms are rules and regulations governing the behavior in a society. Norms is a societal expectation. It is a standard to which we are expected to conform whether we actually do or so or not. It is the cultural specification that guides our conduct in society. It is a way of doing things, the way that is set for us by our society. Social norms are the essential instruments of social control. There is no society and social life without them. Norms are transmitted to each individual through the process of socialization. In short, norms are the blueprints or the designs for living. Without norms, social relations among the individuals would be haphazard, chaotic and dangerous. It is the norms that give order, stability and predictability to social life. Norms are both prescriptive and prescriptive. That is, the norms prescribe or require certain actions and proscribe or prohibit certain other actions. We are required to drive automobiles on left side of the road and are forbidden to run through a light. Frequently, the prescriptions come in pairs, that is, we are required to do something and are forbidden to do something else, or forbidden to commit an act and require to omit it. Social norms may be said to have two parts, namely goals and means. Individuals are supposed to attain the goals through legitimate means prescribed by the society, but sometimes an apt individual may accept a goal, but not the approved means for achieving it. For example, a student who wishes to receive a college degree may not accept the prescribed conduct for achieving the goal, such as attending the classes and securing the necessary grades, because norms embody the standards for evaluating the behavior of individuals or groups. They are excellent reflectors of culture. Let us look into the types of social norms. Sociologists identify a number of types of norms. Together, they constitute what is called the normative system of the society. The folkways. The word folkways literally means the way of the folk, the ways people have devised for satisfying their needs, for interacting with one another and for conducting their lives. This term was coined by the American sociologist William Graham Sumner. Folkways are norms to which we conform because it is customary to do so in our society. Conformity to the folkways is neither required by law or any sanction or punishment for their violation, and yet we do obey the folkways as a matter of custom, as a matter of usage. Eating breakfast in the morning, to greet elders, etc., are all of folkways. The two types of folkways frequently identified in sociology are customs and fashions. Customs are folkways that seems relatively permanent. They are practices that have gradually become accepted as appropriate modes of behavior and are maintained by group opinion. Observing particular religious holidays, participating in certain rituals are examples of customs. Customs resist change, that is how they differ from fashion. Fashions are practices that are expected to undergo fairly rapid change. Rapidly changing fashions in clothing styles, hairstyles, etc. are accepted feature of our life. Let us look into modes. The term modes was also coined by William Graham Sumner. It is the Latin word used for customs and manners, but we use it as synonymous with morals. What a society defines as moral is revealed in its mores, and hence they are the core of normative order. Mores are special group of norms about which the members of the society are extremely cannot violate mores, since they carry a must connotation and are accompanied by heavy negative sanctions for their violation. Mores differ from the folkways in the sense moral conduct differs from merely customary conduct. Our society requires us to conformity. The current habits as to hours of labor, meal hours, family life and many other aspects of life fall under this ritual. Each does not as others do. In short, mores give us discipline and the support of routine and habit. According to Sumner, mores are those norms which are justified by tradition and accepted in society because they have the authority of being social facts and never questioned or widely debated by majority of citizens. Mores, therefore, are fundamentally conservative, that is, they function to maintain the status quo and perpetuate unchanging pattern of behavior for long periods of time. This conservative nature of mores, however, creates a problem in the modern world, since they lose their vitality and meaning in changing situations. Mores which have relevance in a given context, time and place may become irrelevant and outdated in other contexts, time and places. There are different kinds of mores, and two important kinds of them are conventions and laws. Conventions are relatively rigid rules governing certain social situations. The major difference between conventions and laws is that violation of law is punished by legal sanction and violation of conventions are met by the negative responses of group in the form of social boycott or ostracism. Laws are rules that are made by those who hold political power and that are enforced through the machinery of the state. Generally, laws are viewed as the codified modes. Example, laws against murder or theft. Along with folkways and modes, each society has its own laws. Laws formally enacted, always written down and recorded in some fashion, and are enacted by legislature, interpreted and applied by the courts and enforced by the police. The difference between modes, folkways and laws perhaps less important than overall emphasis upon the fact that they are all norms and that together they comprise the normative system of behavior in a society. Values. Values are the views about what is desirable. Values differ from norms in that norms are fairly precise rules of behaviors, whereas values are the general standards that are somewhat independent of specific situations. For example, the opinion that democracy is desirable form of government is a value. The rules under which a democratic society functions are norms. Values are preferences about way things should be, and they are generally derived from beliefs which are convictions about the ways things are. Values which are purposes or goals call for the norms and make the norms meaningful expectations within the cultural content. Let us look into the customs. According to Bogadas, custom refers primarily to the practice that have been often repeated by a multitude of generations. Practices that tend to be followed simply because they have been followed in the past. Customs and traditions are the group of accepted techniques of control that have become well established and are passed along from generation to generation by the tradition and usually made effectively social approval. Custom has for the individual an eternal sanction. It is a mode of conduct of the group itself. As a group, and every custom is in consequence adjusted to the others which the group observes. It is part of a complex determined relationships sustained and guarded by the group. Every individual sustains it. All celebrations, rituals and ceremonies fall within this class. These customs stimulate social consciousness of one another. Sanctions. Sanctions are the supporters of the norms, the punishments applied to those who do not conform and the rewards given to those who do. There are more or less subtle ways in which the disapproval may be expressed. It varies from ridicule to official penalty. Sanctions differ in degree and sometimes in character for the different norms. They all tend to separate the errant individual from his group and to cast upon him the spell of loneliness. It is not that mores are necessarily more coercive than the folkways, or that the laws are necessarily more coercive than either the folkways or mores. The negative sanctions order from folkways to laws, but the greater severity does not necessarily induce greater conformity. How and why we conform to norms? Society pressure upon us to conform to the norms. Hope of reward and fear of punishment are not the reasons why we conform to the norms of our society. The indoctrination which occurs among the humans is one of the reasons why we conform to norms. From childhood, individuals are taught to observe the norms. We are taught eating habits. The socialization of the child in effect is the process of learning the norms of the society. After a while, these norms seem to him the right and proper way of doing things. Sometimes this is the process of indoctrination, a process that is constant, continuous from the beginning of our lives. Habituation. We conform to the norms because we become habituated to them. That is, customary in many cases becomes habitual. When an individual becomes habituated to a practice, he observes it automatically. Habituation reinforces the norms and guarantees the regularity of conformity. Utility. Another reason for conforming to norms of our society is that frequently we are aware of their utility. Norms are useful as they enable us to interact with each other in way conducive to the best interest of all, that they contribute to the case of social intercourse. People recognize regulation as useful to everyone. The group identification. The other reason is that conformity is a means of group identification. We may conform to the norms of our social groups rather than to those of groups to which we do not belong, since we conform to them. It is in express our identification with these groups. Let us look into the status and role. Status. The concepts of status occupy a central place in the analysis of social structure, structural elements of human society. The interaction between individuals and groups depends upon the proper functioning according to role and status. The concepts role and status are commonly used. So, every society classifies its population according to kinship, profession and job functions, etc. Each society have some form of division of labor, and the most rudimentary form of division of labor includes a classification according to status and role. Recognition of the position of an individual in the social system and the authority E holds in consequence is the basis of status system. It is historical since in all ages men inherited or acquired statuses, and it is universal because status inheritance and acquisition is recognized commonly in all societies. Status is defined position in the social structure of a group or society that is distinguished from and at the same time related to other positions through its designed designated rights and obligations. Each status position in a social structure can be viewed in terms of its superiority and inferiority. People tend to equate status with rank, prestige or hierarchical position. A status is a position in society or in a group. According to Linton, status is a place in a particular system which a certain individual occupies at a particular time. According to Max Weber, a status, class or income are the three major dimensions of social stratification. Status is an effective claim to social esteem in terms of positive or negative privileges. Status claimant must have an audience from which to receive or to demand differential response. The elements of status. The term status has a physical as well as psychological situation. This situation forms certain elements and characteristics which can be enumerated as 1. The status is determined by the cultural situation of a particular society. 2. The status is determined only in relevance to the other members of the society. 3. Every status has to play role in the certain accordance with the status. 4. Status is only a part of the whole of the society or the society as a whole. As a result, the society is divided into various groups. Let us look into the types of status. Status is determined either by position one holds or by special qualities one possesses. Social status is of two principal forms, ascribed and achieved. Ascribed status, this is the status in which are assigned to individuals without reference to their innate differences or abilities. Ascribed status means an individual derives a particular position in the society right from his birth. This is his status which is predetermined. This status cannot be changed. A person born into a caste cannot change to other caste. This is the status the person has inherited. A person inherits the status from the family in which he is born and is recognized by the society. In the entire social relationship of an individual with an ascribed status gives him a particular position in the society. The achieved status. Achieved status is that which requires special qualities of the individual left open to be filled through competition and individual effort. An individual through his hard work, skill and other special qualities raises his status over a period of time. A student who qualifying a job examination, the status of his family is raised along with his own. Here it means that he works hard to achieve the status and holds a special position in the society. Achieved status changes according to situation. A rich man due to loss in his business becomes a poor person and loses his former status. So, the factors and causes which determine status change according to the time, place which they belong. Let us look into the role. When people occupy social positions, their behavior is determined mainly by what is expected of that position rather than by their own individual characteristics. Roles are socially defined attributes and expectations associated with social position. A role is the expected behavior associated with a specific social status. According to Ralph Linton, refers to role as dynamic aspect of status. A role is the totality of all the cultural patterns associated with particular status. Any given role within a group tends to vary according to the individual who occupies the status, as well as the general membership composition of the group. According to Lundberg, a social role is a pattern of behavior expected of an individual in a certain group or situation. It goes to say that every action has an attached role. The role has an aspect of action which is nothing but a cluster of interrelated structures around specific rights and duties and associated with particular status position within a group of social situation. A person's role in any situation is defined by the set of expectations for his behavior held by others and by the person himself. Let us look into the characteristics of role. Different qualities and characteristics of the role emerge, which may be studied in the following heads. 1. Action aspect of status. The role is the action aspect of status. It involves various types of actions that a person has to perform in accordance with the expectations of the society. The role is the sum total or the pattern of the actions that are performed for the fulfillment of the expectations of other members of the society. Changing concept of role. Social roles are in accordance with the social values, ideals, patterns, etc. These ideals, values and objects change, and so the concept of the role also changes. The role which is justified at a particular time may not be justified at some other time. The limited field of operation. Every role has a limited area of operation and the role has to be confined within that. For example, an officer has a role to play in the office, but when he reaches his family, that role ceases. Roles are not performed 100% for the fulfillment of the expectations. It is not possible for everyone to perform his role fully in accordance with the expectations of the society. There is bound to be some distinction. The difference in the importance of role. From the sociological, socio-cultural point of view, all the roles that are not equally important, some of the roles are more important while the others are less. The roles that are more important are called the key roles, while the roles that are of general importance are called the general roles. Key roles are important for the organization of the society, while general roles are helpful in the fulfillment of day-to-day activities. The terminology of role. Recent accounts of role have produced several refinements. 1. Role distance. A term coined by E. Goffman in 1959 refers to the detachment of the performer from the role he or she is to performing. This makes an important distinction between the existence of expectations concerning role performance of a role and individual's commitment to role. 2. Role conflict. This is a situation observed in various senses when a person finds he or she is playing two or more roles at one time that make incompatible demands. When a person defines his or her role in one way while those in related roles define it differently. When related roles have incompatible expectations of the focal role, also freedom of individuals to role making is now seen to vary according to the type of position they occupy. 3. The role set. Robert K. Merton defines roles do not exist by themselves in isolation from one another, and each role has its complementary or associated role or roles. Any given social status involves an individual actor in a number of social relationships that are always found to be necessary for persons in that particular status. 4. Role model. Role model refers to individuals whose behavior in a particular role provides a pattern or model upon which another individual bases his behavior in performing the same role. The role model provides a standard used by the other person in determining the appropriate attitudes and actions of an occupant of the role. All the societies and groups have many such positions, and every individual occupies many such positions. A role, on the other hand, is the dynamic or the behavioral aspect of status learned on the basis of status. A social role consists of behavior an individual has learned to enact in responding to the expectations of particular groups in specific social situations. Status is occupied, but roles are played. A role is the manner in which a given individual fulfills the obligations of a status and enjoys its privileges and prerogatives. A role is what an individual does in the status he occupies. Different individuals do different things in the same status. A status is attached many norms. A person who occupies that position, whoever may be the person, he has certain duties, responsibilities and obligations, and in turn enjoys certain privileges, prerequisites and prerogatives. These are all attached to the status and not to the individual. Individual may come and go, but the position remains the same. The role exhibits numerous variations. Status is a sociological concept and a sociological phenomena. Role, on the other hand, is a concept and phenomena of social psychology. Both of them are dynamic and constantly changing. When the status changes, the norms attached to it are altered. The role changes with a new incumbent in a status. Status is a cultural element in the life of a society, whereas role is purely behavioral. Thus, status is an institutionalized role. It is a role that becomes regularized, standardized and formalized in the society. Roles comprise the expected behavior of an individual in a situation which carries the role's idea of reciprocity and behaviors of others towards him. Each person plays a number of roles depending upon his relationship at the moment. A person plays a role of citizen, father, husband, etc. as he takes up appropriate role in different groups and institutions. The social role is learned by the individual in the course of socialization along with the basic values that go with the roles gives its meaning. Personality is considered sociologically as the combination of roles that the individual plays in his social relationships. One person may have different statuses in different situations. A person has one status as a father, another as a worker, etc. The person plays successively the role of businessman, parent and colleague and so on. Each position involves different status, which in turn evokes an appropriate role. We have studied certain universal components of social structure, norms, status, roles, values and customs. These structural elements like role, status, norms have been analyzed and explained. It is shown how norms, status and roles are interrelated and interdependent and constitutes the very basis of social structure and organization. These elements provide and assures of the social order and stability of human societies.